Hello, everyone, and welcome now, day 27, reading the 40 chapters of Exodus across the 40 days of Lent. I appreciate uh, your dedication to this task. Whenever we've had these series over the last few years, we haven't had one where we have committed as many days as we have in this study, and typically the participation wears down. That is understandable, and that is fine. To those that are participating as best they can, I want to offer my thanks, and I hope that this practice, this discipline during this Lent has been beneficial to you. I think here on this video today probably will be briefer. I kind of stretched out yesterday's video a little bit more than what I had to, discussing some things that a little bit broader than the immediate text. Discussing the tabernacle being constructed as a microcosm of God's creation, the portal, the meeting place of heaven and earth, and how the tabernacle, the specific instruction, very reminiscent of the construction of creation, the 6 days of creation there, when everything functioned in God's good, orderly way as the antithesis of the of chaos. Today, here in chapter number 27, we see the various facets, dimensions, and elements of the tabernacle continue to be discussed, including it starts off with the altar in specific dimensions. Then it speaks of the courtyard, which the section which is outside of the tent proper, being discussed with specific dimensions, and then an oil offering as well, that will be continually offered up by the priest Aaron and his sons, it says. And of course, here, the oil offering is supposed to be done of pure oil, olive oil. And once they would habitate their destined land, they would have ample olives for the creation of oil. However, in the early part of their wilderness dwelling, the olives would not be all that available, and so either this was redacted and put in later, the specifications of the olive oil, or it was forward looking to the time when the olives would be quite plentiful. But nevertheless, the detail and almost repetitive articulation of this tabernacle conveys a lot of things. And there are a lot of things in the small picture that we could look at and could consider, maybe the symbolism of each one of the compartments and instruments and devices. But there is a macro picture as well, something that's significant that's forming. With all these chapters now that discuss the tabernacle, it's clear that that worship and the way that worship is guided, principled, and conducted is of an extreme importance here. It's going to end up being roughly a quarter, maybe more, maybe less. Well, I haven't counted it quite up yet, but a significant part that just covers the tabernacle and the priesthood, and we'll have more about sacrifices and things of that nature. The law that we looked at, the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments, and some of the other ethics that were derivatives of that law, were covered relatively briefly. The worship component is given in quite a detail. Um, it's this portal, this meeting place where God comes to dwell on earth now by way of this tabernacle. It's something that the qualities are to be carefully stewarded by the human agents, by the priests, their unique sect, but also by the entire covenant people, the Hebrews here. What worship is very important, and when we realize that, when we get that, I think it gives us a great indication of, in our Christian paradigm, in the paradigm of the church, that when we come together and we meet for worship and we gather, proclaiming God's great acts of the past, our faith of the present, and our forward looking dimension into the future, that we are participating, our ritual and our liturgics are somewhat to a bit altered, but yet we're participating in a function that had a very intentional design, and it is something very, very sacred, the worship of God and what we do, that it is grounded and foundational not only to the covenant of the Hebrews that we find here in Exodus, but also in the Christian covenant as well. And so, as we continue, tomorrow will be the last reading of this week, and we'll get into the clothing of the priests again, because where the tabernacle is, where the agents, the priests are, everything is done with detailed and intentionality, with good order, because again it represents God's good order here on earth as it is in heaven. And it offers us an encouragement as Christians, a commendation as well as a potential condemnation, that what we do in worship and what we do as the church is that microcosm, that representation of God's good order here on earth as it is in heaven. Therefore, there's nothing that we do that should be taken lightly or in a dismissive or casual or cavalier fashion, but everything we do ought to be considered sacred, purposeful, and with design. All right, I'll leave it there, and I'll meet you again tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.